Welcome to Rewatch and Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other. Today's episode is Deathnote Live Action Episode 3. Episode in a nutshell is a brief reminder of what happened within this episode. So this episode focuses once again on Ray Pember and Light. So the episode begins with the ending of the call between Light and Elle. And after that, Elle discusses what happened with Ray before sending him off to continue to surveil Light. Meanwhile, Light's in a bit of a panic, even to the point where he starts crying about it. And then, of course, just as he's in the middle of his panic, his father returns home and brings another detective up to his room with him, which almost leads to Light writing down Soichiro's name. However, he does end up being questioned, but discovers that it's not about him being Kira, but about the attack on Misa. And this allows him to then calm down. And once he has calmed down, he then decides that Elle was probably bluffing because he notices that Ray is trailing him once again. And then we see L's side where he's talking with Soichiro, who was chewed out by his boss about how his daughter received a call from L accusing his daughter of being Kira. And so we find out that L actually called 21 of his many suspects, claiming that he believes them to be Kira. It wasn't just Light. And then the task force are all given new IDs, while Light, meanwhile, works on his drawer trap to guard the book about against being found, and if it is found, then it will blow up or set on fire. This is also when Ryuk makes the eye offer officially to Light, but Light is a little bit busy and is too busy making his plan to kill Ray Pember. He ends up using his friends who are going to one of Misa's concerts together, and while in a crowd, so it looks casual, he starts casing out this shopping street with multiple little cafes and little shops, and finds the perfect spot to basically enact his plan for Ray, which is to obviously kill Ray and the other FBI agents. However, Ray also at this time realizes that he had a picture of Kathy in his wallet and that it was most likely seen by Kira. So this puts him on alert. We then, of course, have Misa's concert where time slows and she gazes at Light. And this, of course, leads to then her backstage writing his name onto a napkin and asking her fellow band members how they should pronounce it. Then Light tells his dad about receiving a prank call from somebody calling themselves L, and what a weird trend that seems to be going around. However, then the dad confesses that actually, I'm working with the Cure Countermeasures Task Force, and it actually was L that called you, but don't worry, he called lots of people. I don't think you're Kira. And then the dad, of course, asks him, should anything happen to him, then, be there for Sayu, and so on and so forth. And they have a moment, though Light in his mind does not plan to back down. Light then enacts his plan. So essentially, he uses a little transceiver to talk to Ray with a voice changer and tells Ray to pick up. Okay, no. So it starts with Light going into a bathroom, escaping out the window. Ray goes in, finds a card with a reservation for a tea shop. Upon entering the tea shop, there's a bag filled with all of the paraphernalia that he'll be needing to enact Light's plan. And then one of those items is a transceiver, which Light speaks into from a cafe across the street, where he has a good view from the second floor down to where Ray is, and he guides him through using a voice changer, calling his boss, getting the profiles of all of the FBI agents in Japan, including their pictures, sent to him, and then writing their names in the squares. And if he doesn't, Kathy Campbell will be killed. He does have a bug on him, so Elle does hear part of the conversation, but then Light catches on that he's being overheard and tells Ray to destroy it, so Ray does do so. Before then, he's to put his own name in the final red box on the sheet. However, Ray, having anticipated a plan or something like this happening because he realized his fiance's photo was seen, pretends to write his name, and then he leaves the cafe, and he's supposed to go to an abandoned factory where he will die. However, as he leaves, we then see that the detectives in the task force have found the body of an FBI agent, and Elle informs Soichiro that the FBI agents are all dying. And then we see Light going to retrieve the papers from Ray's body, only to find that Ray is actually alive, and he very poorly tries to fight Ray before ending up at gunpoint. And he's, of course, worried that he'll die. Ray is, of course, talking about how he's Kira, asking him how he kills. Is it to do with this paper? Trying to interrogate him at gunpoint. However, just as Light is starting to think that he might die, Ray does end up falling down for a heart attack, and Light grabs all the evidence in the bag, the papers, etc., and runs away from the warehouse just as sirens are heard, and Soichiro arrives, finding Ray's body. And then we see Misa walking out from between a couple of buildings holding her own death note, which of course implies that Misa was the one to kill Ray. Elle is then informed by Watari that the remaining FBI, well, the agents in Japan have all died, so the FBI is severing ties with the investigation, and Elle admits that he's lost this round, but reaffirms his commitment to finding Kira and destroying Kira. Light then ends up next to a river and asks Ryuk if he was the one who saved him, but Ryuk informs him that no, he did not. In fact, he cannot, but that he'll find out who it is. They'll reveal themselves soon, and likely they're Shinigami, as there is now a second Kira. And we then see Misa in her room talking with Rem about how she found Light in the audience, how she decided to kill Ray and save him as a thank you for him saving her. Rem asks what she plans to do next now that she's used the eyes and the notebook for the first time, and Misa says that she is going to keep it a secret. So now that we've been reminded about everything that happened in this episode, it is now time to rank this episode, and as always we will be ranking on our mostly objective ranking list, followed by the personal ranking list. And on our mostly objective ranking, we have worth 3 points our multi-episode supporting character development, which of course is that Ray falls into Light's trap to kill the other FBI agents, but manages to escape himself, only to be killed by Misa, and we reveal through Misa's eyes that his true name in this series is Mark Dwelton. 3 points. And then 4 points for the multi-episode main character development. We get some flashbacks to Light's childhood, back before he didn't like his father when he would play with him as a kid. We also have him creating his drawer trap to save the book, or rather prevent the book from being seen, so either nobody ever finds it because of the false bottom, or should they realize there's a false bottom and try to find the book, it will burn therefore destroying the evidence. And then we have an additional 4 points because Misa has the Shinigami eyes, and she's able to see Light's name, and she uses her book in those eyes for the first time. So that brings us up to 11 already. We then have 4 points for the world building aspect, which is a few new rules being revealed. So we have Light discovering through his experiments that he has continued that even though the Death Note controls people before death, he can't use it to make people kill third parties. So you have to write down the name of the person. So even if he had been able to control Rei initially, Rei wouldn't have ended up killing L because that's something the Death Note cannot do. And then, of course, there's the I offer being explained and given to Light by Ryuk, which Light refuses, though again, Misa did accept. Also worth another 4 points, bringing us up to 15 points. However, there was one negative messaging or behavior, which was worth -2 points, and that was the fact that L, while listening in to Rei, instead of doing anything to help save anybody, decides that it's more important and not worth saving the FBI agents. On the off chance he might learn how Kira kills, that is his priority over the lives of the law enforcement agents, and obviously that's not good, but it is in L's nature, I would say. Either way, that does leave us with a 13 points, and because 10 is the maximum score, it makes it a 10 out of 10 episode. Bringing us now to the live action ranking so far. And on our mostly objective ranking, when more than one episode has the same score, they just get ranked in episode order. And so far, we are 3 10s. So our episode order is 1, 2, 3. For my personal ranking, I enjoyed the episode. I thought the background music was really good for the different scenes and for raising the tension where it needed to. So I wanted to call out that was very well done. This is one of the more exciting moments even back in the anime, one of like the first real action scenes of L or Light enacting his plans. I also really like the changes that they made because, everything goes so perfectly in the anime, which shows Light's genius, even though he doesn't always live up to the genius title in the anime. But in this one, because they haven't made Light a genius, obviously his plan doesn't go to plan, and he ends up actually almost dying, almost getting caught red-handed by Rei. And if it wasn't for Misa, he would have either died or been arrested there, and the entire series would have ended. And I think that really raises the tension. Also, I hated anime Misa. Like, I really did not like that character at all. But the live action Misa, I like that she is calmer. She seems to be more intelligent. She definitely is way more likable than the anime version. So even though I really disliked the character of Misa in the anime, I do find that I do like Misa in this live action, which is an accomplishment. However, in the lead up to that action in the last like 15 minutes, most of it was a lot of touching base, getting people up to speed, background hints on the plan, and Light putting the plan pieces in place, and was a little bit boring, and that is why I decided to give it an 8 out of 10 because it was really, really entertaining to watch, changed my views on some of the characters, added tension that was missing in the anime, but ultimately the first part was a teeny weeny little bit boring. So, with that being said, our live action ranking so far has episode 1 in first place. This episode comes in second, and then the second episode is in third so far. Which brings us to the series ranking so far. On our mostly objective ranking, we have part 1 of the anime in first place at 70.77%, part 2 of the anime in second at 51.82%, and the live action so far has a perfect score of 30 out of a possible 110. On the personal ranking side, we have part 1 of the anime in first place at 60.38%, part 2 of the anime in second at 49.09%, and the live action so far does have also a strong score with 25 out of a possible 110 so far. But with that, we've now rewatched and ranked Death Note Live Action Episode 3. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.